fundamentally, you don't get a successful business from not doing very much. So I think it's working hard, and communication I think is probably one of the biggest things with any business, any company. It's I would say is probably the best part.
Welcome to our podcast where we help tradespeople grow and be successful with their business. I'm your host, Tulloch Priest, co-founder of Gas Engineer Software and FieldRocket, helping over 5,000 trade companies with job management, records, invoices, and scheduling. And today I'm very excited to introduce our guest. Alexa is one of the owners of Bluglow, with a team of 35 covering air conditioning, bathroom installations, kitchens, oil, gas, and is based close to Oxford. So welcome to the show.
Hi.
Yeah. Could you tell us a little bit about your background and when you joined the business?
Yeah, of course. So my background is quite varied. I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I left school. I worked a lot with horses when I was younger and just had, did various things. I travelled, worked in hospitality, and then about 8 years ago, so when I was early 30s, I fell into an admin job in plumbing and heating in that industry. And it was just one of those, I needed a job at the time, and I just started doing an admin role. And quite quickly, there was a bit of a reshuffle, and I stepped into a sort of a service manager's role. And then kind of jump ahead a few years, and I was running a department of I think there were 4 engineers, and it just worked out really well, and I loved it. I loved the buzz of it all. It was very different. And then I eventually came over to here because in about 2019, autumn time, so almost 4 years ago, the company was struggling financially, the larger parts of the company. And a lot of the staff got wind of problems that were happening, and it was a bit of an opportunity, wrongly or rightly, and I approached who are 2 of my fellow directors now, who I knew from a previous life of working in lettings, and we ended up merging to what we are today. So I took the customers from the old company when it closed, and one of the engineers, Dan, who is also a director now, for Bluglow, and we merged almost 4 years ago. So that's how I ended up at Bluglow. So it was a bit of a strange approach to things, but it's worked out quite nicely in the end. So
okay. And so Bluglow is a new company, but it just kind of transferred the customers from the previous one, is that?
Yeah, kind of. Bluglow was an existing company, so that the history prior to myself and Dan coming on board was Jamie started the company by himself as a one-man band. He worked for British Gas when he was much younger, and then I think it was in 2000 2000, I've got my notes here, 2000 he set up Aspect Plumbing and Heating, which was his company, and then he took on, after a few years, an apprentice who was Ben, who is also now one of the directors. Jumped forward a chunk of time, and in 2016 they changed the company to Bluglow, so it's Aspect trading as Bluglow, and it's grown very organically over that time. So Ben, the apprentice, then became Jamie's co-director, and then when myself and Dan came on board, the 4 of us merged to make it work as it is today. So it's grown very much over the last 23 years, and just had various changes, increased in size and department and everything else. So it's been quite an organic process.
And so what size was the company when you joined, and what kind of challenges did you have with that?
I think there was 16 staff when we joined 4 years ago. Yeah. So we brought over quite a few customers, mainly on the servicing and maintenance part of the company. And then we increased it over time, and we're now, like I said before, I think we're 35 staff, and then about 6 or 7 subcontractors as well. So we're quite a significant number.
And it's mainly domestic, or a little bit of mixture of commercial?
A complete mixture. So we've diversified a fair bit, and we do a lot of.
And what does controls do?
So it's the the more complex side, it's more commercial. It's the more complex side of your heating controls. Effectively, it's classed as BMS, and it is much more on the commercial side of things. So it's a case of having. Let me explain this in a straightforward way. You might have to edit this bit a bit. It's a way of controlling your heating, your hot water, everything across the system in a much more techie way, so that somebody can sit by a computer and they can set up exactly how they want the systems to run. So it's used a lot in colleges, hotels, schools, and it's becoming a much greener way of focusing on things. So we used to subcontract it out a lot, and a year ago we set up a division doing exactly that. So that's something we bought in house now as well.
Okay, so that would be very similar to, like, on the domestic front, you've got Hive or Tadu, or so you got room by room heating. I'm assuming.
Yeah, effectively. Yeah.
Okay, but obviously a slightly different scale. So
it is on a different scale. It's also, I think, something which is, I think, quite exciting now for, as an industry, we're being pushed very much into renewables and what we should or shouldn't be doing. And that side of it, being able to control systems much more, is a lot of where it could be quite useful. So, for a lot of these big commercial buildings that are just running all day and all night because they don't have the facility to control them, that's where it can be implemented and make a huge difference to bills. So yeah, it's an interesting part of the company. So.
Okay. And then because you're quite close to Oxford as well, so you've got quite a few. Are they commercial, or are they more office buildings that you kind of deal with, or is it?
For what? For general, or just the control side?
Yeah, but mainly for the control side, because I'm just trying to. I don't know that area that well, so I'm assuming there's quite a lot of office buildings, schools, universities.
It's a mixture, actually. There's obviously, you've got a lot of the colleges and the universities in Oxford. So that's something which that side of things is being rolled out into. There's a huge amount of industry as well in and around Oxfordshire. So it's a complete mixture. The chap that runs that department, he's going relatively far out as well. So I think he's had some bits and pieces up in Manchester. Once the general setup is done, everything can effectively be dealt with from our office space. So it's once you've got things in place, then you can run it from anywhere effectively.
And there's quite a range of services that you do. I know your team size is quite big as well. Was that a kind of a conscious decision to do, lots of things? The reason I'm asking is more about the complexity of trying to run the business, the staffing, all of those kind of things. I would imagine they would jump up quite a bit.
Yes and no. I think there hasn't been any real conscious decision to say, right, this is where we want to go. It's happened in a way of, we've got these demands and we're able to potentially deliver, what we already know, what we can do. I think that it hasn't so much, created a complexity with it. I think it's more just the awareness of how big we've become, and I think for the four of us, sometimes it could be maybe slightly overwhelming when you have a staff get together and you realize actually quite how many there are of us. That we've got quite a good setup. I think between the four of us, we all do quite different roles and oversee what we need to, so we're not sort of overstretching ourselves as far as all the departments go, and we've got correct management in place to run certain sides of it as well. But it's it hasn't been a conscious sort of, right, where do we want to go and how are we going to set this up. It's sort of, it has just happened quite naturally, which has been a nice way of doing it.
The other reason I was asking is because there's a kind of a natural tension between, you can only travel so far. So if you're only doing, let's say, sort of going to say a smaller company, if you're only doing installs, there's a limit to what your local sort of population is and where you're based and stuff. So
yeah.
So it's just kind of for some companies, especially if you're in London or something like that, you could do you could be more specialized. So I didn't know whether that kind of pushed you a little bit, but I can kind of see your point about if you're always outsourcing it, it does cross your mind. Could you do it in-house?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. And I think it also allows you then to, I think, give the customer everything rather than being limited to what you can actually do. And I think in this industry, if we were to focus on just one side of it, it would put us much more at risk of problem. We all know what's going on in the world and the effects of whether it's locations or different demographics of where you're putting your work out. We've diversified so much that if we were to lose one part of our company or one area of business, we wouldn't be in trouble, I think, whereas a lot of customers potentially could be. So I think it's allowed us to keep a bit of a safety net in there as well.
Are you considering doing the heat pumps at all?
We have had various conversations, and we're working alongside a company who supply them. There are various talks about it. There are quite a few question marks because they don't suit all properties and all customers. And I think, as an end user, we are being, as for the customers, we're being sort of, the grants are forcing it upon people that may not understand it fully, and then it may not work for them. And I think it's a tricky one to answer, because yes, we will happily install them, but I think an efficient gas boiler at the moment is one of the best things on the market, and I think the air source heating is still quite a risky thing to install. And it could cost people a lot more money than they realise, and not actually save them in the long run, which is problematic.
Well, but you have risks to your company, your reputation, and as you said, it might not even heat the house. So
I think it's really hard. We've had various meetings about the air source heating, and we've had companies deliver a really interesting presentation, but you ask questions about the units, and as an example, this is my property, and what if I do this, this and this, and there's no guarantee that actually it will deliver what you want it to and what you need it to, and people I think people haven't got the money to spare a lot of the time to throw at something that might not work or might not be what they need. So it's a really tricky one to. There's a lot more to it than just is it the right thing for the planet, and it's not a straightforward one.
Yeah. And sort of jumping back to like when you first joined the company, what kind of challenges and could you just tell us about the systems you kind of set up, or the challenges, and how you kind of solved them?
I think the main challenges that probably will always stay the same is staff. I think are probably always going to be your main challenges, staff and customers, but they're something which you have to deal with every day regardless. I think we're incredibly lucky. We have a great team, and yes, we have problems here and there, but generally everyone works very well together. And you just have to deal with things day to day. You have some people that you can't send to certain jobs, and others that you can't, and it's the case of getting to know them, getting to know the customers, and it's a different work they all do. So that there's always going to be those challenges. I think we're quite lucky in the way that we're busy. We have a great reputation, so we have a lot of work coming our way, but you still have to manage that properly. And there's a lot of work that goes on behind closed doors in the office that people don't realise, to make sure that we do have enough work for all of those staff. So yeah, I think those are the main challenges. I think also in some ways having such a good reputation, and where we work it's quite a small place as a town, and often when you are probably one of the bigger companies and quite successful, people tend to come after you a bit or try to poach staff or business or whatever else, and that can always be a challenge. But I think we work very well as the four directors, but also as a company we work all very well together, and it's quite a family unit. I would say it feels like quite a family unit, so that that helps things as well.
You kind of mentioned earlier as well that you had proper management in place, and that from our own experience, we have a team of 33 at the moment, and it doesn't happen by chance. So
no,
I'm guessing like 16, and like if you have a team of size of 16 up to 35, plus the external contractors, the actual business systems, do need to be an awful lot tighter. And then I'm guessing like the roles between the four of you, I'm only guessing, but I'm thinking those are really well defined. Otherwise, you'd be stepping on each other's toes, and you've got that accountability. You know who's accountable for what.
I think for the four directors, we're still very much hands-on, and we are the main four senior members of staff. We have people that will look after certain departments. And I think since myself and Dan joined, we've introduced more admin staff. We've introduced, an accountant to the mix of things. I think we outsource health and safety as well as HR support. So we've set up in such a way that we know we can function. I think as far as the roles that we all do, I think it's knowing your limits, and I think there are times when you do everything yourself, it's quite hard to let go. And we've all had to learn sometimes to enable us to grow, which we have done. We have to let go of certain things as well, which mistakes might be made, but you just have to accept those and move on from them. But it's I think it's been a process of a necessity. If to enable us to move forwards, we need to let go. We need to let other people come on board and help out with that.
Yeah, and it also is good for them as well. So you encourage them to grow also.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as a leader, you need to change as well. So if you but that letting go, that control, those things are definitely challenging at times. That's for sure. Change of mindset there. And with such a big team, how do you kind of ensure that your customer services, it's the right standard all the way through?
So I think as we've grown, because we have stayed relatively small, there's a lot of us, but we've grown bit by bit over time. And I think with the people that we've introduced in the office, that would be the initial point of contact on that customer service side, we've very much tried to sort of mold them the way that we like to do things. So I think the main thing with customer service is communication, being honest with people about what we can do, about what our prices are. We're very transparent. We don't sort of try to hide anything away. We always keep on top of the work that's done and delivering. If there's we tend to process the job the day after it's done on the servicing side, for example. If there's a quote to be done, we'll then deal with that and send that over to the customer. So it's communication, I think, is the main thing with the customer service. And if we're going to do something, we try to always do that. So, if we've got a diary entry booked in, we will turn up. So I think it's that side of it is fundamental. We know it's a huge part of our job. The customer service is probably the main part of it. And yes, there are problems at times, especially in the middle of the winter when somebody's got no heating and hot water, and understandably a bit miffed and upset. And you just have to deal with, I think, expectation. We're not, we can't magic things to be repaired instantly. We have to manage other jobs. We have to manage parts coming in. We will, as much as possible, prioritise repairs to get people up and running as quickly as possible. But you can't please everyone, and I think sometimes accepting that is a huge thing as well.
So kind of in summary, just doing the basics, answering the calls, turning up on time, honouring your word, and actually, just letting people know. You kind of touched on this slightly on pricing. How do you kind of decide your pricing? And, because we've kind of gone through quite a lot of pressure, on materials, all sorts of things.
We haven't actually changed our prices in quite a long time, which has been a conscious decision because I think an awareness of what's going on around us. Obviously, prices of materials have increased, so that will then get delivered on to the customer. So, but as far as our labour charges go, we haven't increased our prices. So we've absorbed a lot rather than sending that over to the customer at the moment. I think we realise the importance of keeping people on board rather than trying to increase our profits at the moment, because people are struggling, and I think everyone's aware of that.
It is kind of tricky, and with the staffing, because you've got quite a few different kind of services. Is it kind of like when you're doing your hiring, are you looking for somebody that can do more than, say, the gas installs? Like, can they do that and something else, or you kind of go for more specialist kind of people?
Very much depends on what we're looking for. I think in this industry, anybody who knows it, you realise that if a decent person comes your way, you snap them up, regardless of what you're looking for at that time. We'll always be open to taking somebody on. I think we're big enough to enable us to do that, and we can have a reshuffle. We can, we can normally make it work. I think in a perfect world, somebody that's willing to do a bit of everything is always great, but the reality is it's quite rare. But it's that's a tricky question, because I think it's having a real all-rounder, but also a really good attitude, and somebody that is is a decent person as well. So there's a real mixture of that comes into it, but it's not always that easy to find what you're looking for with it in any role, to be honest. So
well, for ourselves, we would hire on the culture first. So they need to be a good fit, and then because the skills, you can train them. They obviously need to be to a certain level. Like if they're a developer, etc., that they do need to have the skills. But if it was for more the customer success, as long as they have the right attitude, and they fit the culture, we do find that you can. We're happy to invest in them. So I'm guessing from what you're saying, it's kind of a similar kind of thing, or?
Definitely. And I think if you were to split the different areas, so when I've been looking for people to come and work as admin in the office, for example, that I think very much comes into the culture side. Is this somebody that is going to fit into us and make that work? Because I think we can generally, and this is a, it's very much an industry thing. It's not that common to have women in the industry that are more on the technical side, or that understand a bit more than just doing the admin. So when I've employed people, it's very much, I don't ever expect that people would understand what most of the things we do are, but it's the learning, and every step of the way, it's the support is there, and I think it's a really empowering thing for anyone that's non-technical to learn and start taking things on. So I think it's having the common sense to understand what they're dealing with, and the openness to just accept that you're not going to know everything, and every day is a learning curve. But then I think on the different departments, very different people will suit different jobs. Some, like you say, that are, maybe facing customers will be better if, on the servicing side, because they'll be going to, between 5 and 8 customers a day. Other people that are more suited to being on a building site, maybe. So you've got to sort of weigh them up and see who is right for which sort of job and which sort of customer.
Mm-hmm. And so when you've got a new person, you've found somebody great, they just joined, how do you kind of generate kind of more work for them? Like what is your kind of ideal customer?
One that pays, one that pays on time.
Yes.
I think we don't have an ideal sort of customer. I think we all really enjoy the fact that we can deal with some huge commercial customer in comparison to a little old lady who lives on her own that needs a boiler service, and we literally it will be completely across the board. And I think there isn't an ideal customer. I think the variety makes it far more interesting, and there's never a boring day.
Yeah. And if you like once you've employed some more people, like how do you actually generate more more leads, more customers? Or
I think there's a lot of word of mouth, which we're quite lucky for, that we pick things up in that respect. I think generate just conversation a lot of the time. People will phone up to inquire, and then you talk to them about what else we can do. We don't actually advertise. We have really good marketing from van wrapping. So that's our only advertising really, is our vans. Which I think you did at one point. You had on the website we were on the front of the website page, which was one of the vans, and that's they're great. And actually, we've now got, I did write this down because there's so many of them. I think we've got 22 vehicles now, and so when they stand out so much, friends and family of mine will often say, "Oh, I saw another Bluglow van today," and you do tend to see them all over the place. And people will often pick up the phone and just say, I keep seeing your van around. Do you do such and such? Can I help with such and such? So I think just word of mouth and being open to any conversation. So I think we're lucky in that respect.
And then just kind of more finally, what about scheduling? How do you kind of schedule your days with the teams, across the multiple teams, and are there any kind of issues that you kind of face in that department?
I think for every department, each person setting up jobs for those people will always have a certain person in mind when they set up a job. Obviously qualifications come into it as well. So whether you're looking at the commercial stuff, whether you're looking at, LPG, oil, there might be only certain people that can do certain jobs. I think on it, we just fill out the diary. We fill out the diary on a day-to-day basis. I think in the winter, on the servicing and maintenance side of things, we'll always be slightly aware that maybe on a Monday, it's a good idea to have a couple of slots available for call outs. But also, we will always make customers very much aware that if they have a service booked in, we might call them to say, look, I'm really sorry, but we're having to reschedule you because we've got an emergency. So I think it's you just manage it when you need to. That's all you can do. Aim for a full diary and have to reschedule things if necessary.
Yeah. Well, for ourselves, we kind of find that there's quite a bit of work, say, for an iOS developer, but not quite so much for the Android. So you just kind of, and they can't cover each other. So I don't know whether you have kind of a similar kind of challenge. So, but thank you very much for joining me. Is there anything else that you want to add, or anything that might be helpful of somebody else trying to grow a business, sort of to this scale?
I think work hard. Don't be afraid of asking questions or making mistakes, because you learn from them. I think, we're all we can all learn. We can all learn from things, and it's fundamentally you don't get a successful business from not doing very much. So I think it's working hard, and communication I think is probably one of the biggest things with any business, any company. It's I would say is probably the best part of growth.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for that. It was very good to have you on, and it was very informative. So thank you very much for your time.
No problem. Thank you.